Welcome to my presentation on metacognition in the classroom. I wanted to create this short presentation to encourage teachers to add some no prep and low prep strategies to the classroom to help their students with motivation and performance. So during the presentation, we'll talk about what is metacognition, why we should care about metacognition, and some low and no prep activities to include in the classroom. There's also some helpful links you can look at for more information on these activities. So first of all, let's start with the definition of metacognition. Many people think of metacognition as thinking about thinking or knowing about knowing. We can also say it's thinking about one's own abilities, especially study skills, memory capabilities, and monitoring learning. Another definition would be metacognition refers to an individual's ability to plan, monitor, evaluate, and make changes to their own learning in order to confront challenges more effectively. And this can be applied to both our students in the classroom or as adults who want to learn a new skill or hobby or improve in some area of our life. When we think about metacognition, we can see that there's two important aspects of it. On one side, there's knowledge. This knowledge has to do with declarative knowledge about oneself. So these can be things like knowing about your habits, knowing what you know, knowing what works well for you in terms of studying or scheduling. We can also think about conditional knowledge. This is why and when we do things. So we can think about sports, why and how you throw a ball, and if you're playing baseball, perhaps when you need to throw the ball to first base as opposed to third base. And we can also think about knowledge in terms of procedural strategies. So these can be strategies involved in mathematical procedures, science experiments, how to write an essay, all of these types of things. They could also include strategies for time management of getting ready in the morning. On the other side, we have regulation. And regulation is very important for students to be effective learners in the classroom. And regulation refers to planning, monitoring, and evaluation. When we talk about planning, we want to think about selecting which strategies we will use. Also, we want to take into consideration resources, such as time. So if students have an essay to write, they need to make sure that they plan the appropriate amount of time to gather their ideas, write their drafts, and be able to type it and turn it in. For monitoring, we want to monitor our comprehension. This can be our oral comprehension, our reading comprehension, but making sure that we understand what is happening around us. And the third part of this evaluation is also very important. Evaluation refers to appraising the final product. So an excellent example of this would be proofreading an essay that you've written. Do you have your capital letters, your punctuation? Are your ideas sound? And students can often confuse a lack of effort with a lack of knowledge of evaluation. So they may think that they spent a lot of time and hard work on a product, but if they've not evaluated it to see that it matches the grading criteria, they could fall short. And when we think about metacognition, it's very important to think about these regulation strategies and teaching them to students because they can help compensate for deficits in general IQ and prior knowledge. I would also hypothesize that they could help EAL students compensate as well because knowing the language would be a form of prior knowledge. So these can help all of our students be more effective in the classroom. So metacognition connects to behaviors that we want to build within our students in the classroom. Behaviors such as social competence, persistence, motivation, engagement, self-regulation, self-efficacy, performance, critical thinking, and growth mindset. So when we start to build metacognition strategies into our classroom, it can create a virtuous cycle for students to become better learners and better people. For example, metacognition can improve motivation and self-regulation. Self-regulation would be those things of coming to class on time, bringing supplies, listening, having follow-through in assignments. And as students are more regulated, their engagement in the class will also improve because they're preventing themselves from being distracted. As their engagement improves, we can think about their persistence towards goals is also going to improve. And as they persist towards goals, this actually changes their brain chemistry and activates the reward system. As their persistence and engagement improve, obviously their performance, both academically and socially, is going to improve as well as their critical thinking. As their performance improves, their self-efficacy is also going to improve. So self-efficacy means your belief in your own abilities. So as they have better performance in the classroom, we'll see that they have more belief in themselves as well. And when they develop better belief in their abilities, again, their motivation and engagement will improve within the classroom. So you can see that these are all interconnected, with the core of these being helping students to learn metacognitive skills. All of these work together to build what we call a growth mindset, which is the belief that we can learn anything if we apply appropriate strategies and planning. So metacognition is teachable. It does have some requirements. Experts recommend that we focus on reflection, that metacognition needs to be explicitly taught, and it differs from subject to subject. So the strategies that we might use in math may not apply to English. And also metacognition relies on teaching and using strategies in the classroom. So now I'd like to talk about some simple low prep and no prep strategies that we can add to the classroom to improve metacognition skills in students. So we'll talk about first teaching metacognition, one method you might consider, then reflective thinking and journaling, think alouds, wrappers, and surveys and questionnaires. Although discussing metacognition with students can take more prep than some of the other activities, it is a really important starting place because it lays the groundwork for what we're doing. So when talking about metacognition with students, you want to think about metacognition is thinking about thinking, and help students to understand that brains are wired for growth, meaning that intelligence is not fixed. And when we think about our thinking, our brains grow, and as our brains grow, we have more capacity for them to grow. This is called the growth mindset. So at the bottom, I've included some links on videos and activities that you can share with students for more information about talking with them about both metacognition and a growth mindset. The next activity is reflective thinking and journaling, which is a no prep activity. So these are questions that you can add to your lessons during lectures or as a closing activity at the end of a lesson. You can add reflective thinking to discussions, and journals can be used as a way for students to track change over time. This could include drawing or writing, since drawing may be easier for students to express themselves. And as students see changes over time, again, it contributes to that virtuous loop of seeing that their brains can grow and change, and they can improve in areas that they may have found difficult before. So again, there's some links with additional questions that you can have on hand as a reminder to add to discussions with students. Additionally, some of the questions from the Global Metacognition Institute could be used for group work with students as well. The next activity is Think Alouds. Think Alouds is an activity that helps make thinking visible for students. This is also a no prep activity. So when teachers engage in Think Alouds, they're actively saying what they're doing and thinking as they show students how to solve a problem. For example, a math activity, they might explain why they're making the choices that they're doing and why they're following a specific algorithm. And we can use this to teach explicitly how we think about strategies, planning, monitoring, and evaluating processes and products. We might think about if we're planning on writing an essay and we need to turn it in on time, how we might plan backwards to help make sure that we have enough time to edit and revise our essay. So that would be an example of a Think Aloud. Again, for more information, you can see the two websites below. The Adlet is specifically about Think Alouds regarding literacy. So wrappers are another excellent activity that can help improve metacognition. And this is more of a low prep activity. Wrappers can be used for in-class activities, discussions, exams, also on homework assignments as well. And they're called a wrapper because they surround a pre-planned activity and embed metacognitive skills within that activity. An example might be to write 3 main ideas from a presentation, and then you could have the students compare that to a teacher's goals of the presentation. You could also have them analyze exam and test responses. If you're thinking about homework, you might look at their planning. Were they able to complete their homework? What was difficult? What was the plan that they used for completing their homework, and how effective was that? So here's an example from Landmark College of an exam wrapper that they use. And this exam wrapper relates to both students reflecting on the knowledge and the strategies, especially regulation and planning that they used in preparing for an exam. So you can see that they're looking at how much time they used, how they reviewed for the exam, and then they're analyzing their errors to see what kind of mistakes they can make. This can then be applied for how they might change their behavior for the following exam. Here's another example of looking at an exam question by question to see what they need to do in the future to improve their grades. The final activity I have are surveys and self-assessments. These are also low prep activities because you will have to find and copy or post the surveys and assessments. Because metacognition is all about reflection, these are excellent ways for students to review their performance, their regulation, their planning, their evaluation of products. And if these are collected, students can also see patterns over time that they can reflect on, which can again help build that virtuous loop. If we're thinking about rubrics, this is an excellent way to help students evaluate their product. At the beginning, students may need to have some discussions with teachers to see how their products align with the rubrics. We can also look at study habit questionnaires to evaluate students' planning when doing homework and studying for exams or writing essays. And finally, strengths and weakness questionnaires can look at our knowledge of ourselves so that students can start to develop ideas of what they're good at and what they may need to improve on in order to become more effective students. Finally, I've included some resources if you would like some more information. In this list is included both research and also some of the websites for more activities. I hope you find this helpful with some activities that are no and low prep that you can include in your classroom activities to help see our students grow and progress. Thank you for watching.